What's up, everybody? Welcome to After the Final Whistle, football talk with Jon and Montel. What's up, everybody? This is week 8, and this is our 7th episode. Jon is on IR, designated to return next week. He wasn't feeling well, so we wish him all the best, and I'm going to do my best to do the show solo here. So it's probably going to be a little short, shooting for somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So just wanted to start off by thanking all our listeners. We had an all-time high for last week's episode, so we really appreciate you all tuning in. And yeah, so let's get started with the injury report. Packers tight end Robert Tonyan tore his ACL yesterday. Today is Friday, October 29th. He tore it in the Thursday night football game against the Cardinals. It's just kind of common sense. Torn ACL, especially this late in the season. He's done. Minimum, you're looking at 8 months of recovery for an ACL. There's no way he's coming back for the playoffs or if they make the Super Bowl. Next up, Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott is questionable versus the Vikings. I think he's dealing with a calf. Julio Jones is out with a hamstring versus the Colts. Rams wide receiver Deshaun Jackson is out versus the Texans. It's not injury related. We'll discuss a little bit later when we get to the league news in terms of why he's not playing this weekend. Rams left tackle Andrew Whitworth is out with a knee injury against the Texans. Steelers tight end Eric Ebron is out with a hamstring against the Browns. Browns cornerback Denzel Ward is out with a hamstring against the Steelers. Eagles running back Miles Sanders is out with an ankle and also a foot injury against the Lions. They've actually placed him on IR. So pretty much he has to sit out a minimum of 3 games. And the way the NFL structures it is that it's not 3 weeks. So if you have a bye in between a couple of games, you have to sit out the remainder of the games. Is how they've kind of set that up. I don't know if it's going forward, but at least for this. Next up, we have Bears linebacker / defensive end Khalil Mack. He's out with a foot injury versus the 49ers. Dolphins wide receiver Devontae Parker is out with a shoulder and hamstring against the Bills. Buccaneers wide receiver Antonio Brown is out again with an ankle against the Saints. Giants running back Saquon Barkley is doubtful for Monday Night Football against the Chiefs. Same thing with wide receiver Kenny Golladay. Neither one of those guys practiced all week, so it's looking pretty up in the air in terms of if they will play or not this week. Deandre Hopkins is out out with a hamstring after the Thursday night football game against the Packers. J.J. Watt is apparently one tough SOB. He's currently dealing with a torn labrum, torn bicep, torn rotator cuff, and a dislocated shoulder. Being someone who has played with a torn labrum, it is I don't want to say excruciating, but it's a pretty painful thing to deal with, especially with the position he plays. Most of your role is using your arm to extend, away from offensive linemen. So in other words, pretty much the water's wet. I mean, he's a Wisconsin boy, and he's been a tough dude since he's been in the league. So I wish the best to him. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Moving on over to some league news. Mark Ingram was traded to the New Orleans Saints for a 2024 7th-round pick. As of now, he's been seen wearing the number 14 at practice. I find it a little interesting. Alvin Kamara, who's their starting running back, wears 41. Before Mark Ingram left in free agency a couple of years ago, they would call themselves like Boom and Zoom or something like that. So opposites attract, or opposites complement each other. Mark Ingram also agreed to a $2.8 million extension before the Texans traded him. So he's signed with New Orleans through next season. The Rams and Deshaun Jackson have mutually agreed to seek a trade partner. Long story short, Deshaun Jackson, I think he's like 32 or 33. He still got that uh, burner kind of speed, and he still thinks he can take the top off the defense. He doesn't like his role in that Rams offense, so they're gonna, I guess, sit him in hopes to not get hurt, so they can get something in a trade for him. Would be my guess. Chris Harris, he's a native to Tulsa, Oklahoma, same place I'm from. He graduated from Bixby High School here in Bixby, Oklahoma. He was named the Week 8 NFLPA MVP after he donated 500 bags of clothing and some hygiene essentials to some homeless in Los Angeles. So, from everything I've heard about Chris Harris, granted, I mean, he was in college when I was in high school, but I've heard nothing but good things about the guy. So I'm glad he is being recognized for making a difference in his community. Next thing we're going to talk about a little bit is the current playoff seeding. So if the season ended today, this is where these teams would sit in the playoff ranking or picture, I should say. Kind of surprising, some of them. The Bengals are your 1 seed at 5-2. The Raiders are your 2 seed at 5-2. Titans are 3, 5-2. Bills are 4, 4-2. Ravens are 5 at 5-2. Chargers are 6 at 4-2, and the Browns are 7 at 4-3. And in the NFC, the superior conference, just saying, the Packers are 7-1. Cardinals are 7-1. Buccaneers are 4-2. Cowboys are 5-1. And they're your 4 seed. The Rams are your 5 seed at 6-1. The Saints are your 6 seed at 4-2, and the Vikings are your 7 seed at 3-3. A couple interesting games in the NFC this week, mainly because they're all in the playoffs. Cowboys and Vikings are playing this week, and so are the Buccaneers and Saints. I guess I'm probably more interested in the Vikings and Cowboys matchup. Being a Vikings fan, it's probably going to be I don't want to say a make or break game, but if they lose that game, it'll be tough. They have to beat the rest of the NFC East and hope Dallas loses one. So, but the Dallas will still have the head-to-head and obviously still be the 4 seed. So, tough road ahead for the Vikings, but it should be a good game come Sunday. So pretty much right now you're looking at the Bengals in the AFC having a bye. Same with the Packers. The Raiders would play the Browns. The Titans would play the Chargers, and the Bills would play the Ravens. In the NFC, the Cardinals would play the Vikings again. The Buccaneers would play the Saints, and the Cowboys would play the Rams. So those are some bangers, man. They'd be some good games if they happen. We'll see if that playoff seeding stays the same. But I'm sure if anybody's listening to this podcast and knows anything about the NFL, this 7-1 Packers team could go 7-12. Or sorry, not 7-12, 7-11, or whatever. I'm against. I think they're 17, so 7-10. I can't do math. That's fine. And they get knocked out of the playoffs. So it's not set in stone, but yeah, the playoffs would be really interesting right now, especially with some teams like the Bengals and the Browns on the rise. No one probably expected the Bengals and Raiders to be 1-2 in any scenario where you're talking about the playoffs. So next we'll move on to the how did our fantasy football team do segment. In our money league, John lost 93 to 141. I lost 149 to 149. In this particular league, the tie break is actually the bench. My opponent had less players on bye. I had 6 on bye that were on the bench, so I lost because his bench outscored mine by 7 or something like that. In our free league, John lost 85 to 148. I won 140 to 23. So I think overall, I mean, we're doing decent. John's sitting at 3-4 in the free league. I'm sitting at 2-5 in our money league. Let me pull it up here. John is sitting at, looks like he's sitting at 4-3, and I'm sitting at 2-5. The interesting thing about me being at 2-5, I have a points for of 1,006 and a points again of 1,009. I'm in ninth place currently, but I have the third most points scored for me and the first most points given up. So I guess life's tough. I mean, I've played everybody on a good week. I apparently still have a pretty good chance to make the playoffs. Sitting at about 63%. John's sitting about 60 in this money league. Moving on, we're going to go over some of our predictions from last week. Overall, including this week, John is sitting at 12-5. He predicted the Bengals would lose to the Ravens 17-28. I predict they actually won 41-17. He predicted the Bears would lose to the Bucks 10-21. They lost 3-38. He predicted the Washington football team would lose 13-28 to the Packers. They lost 10-24. So he got pretty close on that score. He's been really good at calling those Packers games this year. So hopefully when the Packers play the Vikings there, he's a little bit further off with those. So I'm sitting at 8-8. If you guys are tuning in week to week, I had a horrible start. I think at one point I was like 6 games below 500. So right now, yeah, sitting at 8-8. I only had 2 games last week because the Vikings were on the bye, and our third game is usually the team we root for. So I predicted the Chiefs would lose to the Titans 27-35. They lost 3-27. I predicted the Saints would beat the Seahawks 24-10. They lost 13-10. So 2-0 there. John sent me his predictions for next week. He's saying the Steelers will beat the Browns 24-17. The Titans will beat the Colts 21-10, and the Chargers will beat the Patriots 28-10. So the games that I have this week are the Panthers at Falcons, Buccaneers at Saints, and Cowboys at Vikings. So these matchups, like I said, are interesting. One, because Panthers, Falcons, Buccaneers, and Saints, they're all in the NFC South, and that's usually a pretty close division. And they all have, I don't want to say similar, but they all have a decent record right now. So Panthers are 3-4, Falcons 3-3, and the Saints are 4-2, and the Bucks are 6-1. So that's a real close division. I really don't know about this Panthers at Falcons game. I watched all of the Vikings play the Panthers a couple weeks ago, and Matt Darnold looked pretty freaking terrible. I think the Panthers will probably do just enough to win this game, and they'll win 24-21. Next up, Buccaneers at Saints. On no planet would I ever take Jameis Winston over Tom Brady. So this will probably be, I guess you can call it like a semi-shootout, but the Buccaneers probably win this one something like 35-24. Saints 24. Lastly, for my predictions, I've got the Cowboys at the Vikings. So this one's another tough one to predict. The Cowboys have looked really good. They're 5-1. Vikings sitting at 3-3. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think either team's going to blow the other out. But I'm going to drink some of my purple Kool-Aid, and I'm going to say the Cowboys lose 27-30. Off the record, I'm going to say the game probably goes into overtime. Our kicker's probably going to miss 2 or 3 kicks in the game, and they're going to line up at the end of the fourth or after they stop the Cowboys in overtime and nail a field goal. That's just like Vikings game narrative. But like I said, this episode's pretty short. Don't have my guy here to banter with me any at all, so we'll keep it short and sweet this week. And yeah, don't forget you all can leave a voicemail. There should be a link in the description of the podcast. You can also email questions to after the final whistle podcast at gmail.com. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, and where pretty much anywhere else you can think of it should be available. If you find one where it's not, let us know, and we'll make sure that we get it added to that particular site. As always, I'm Montel, y'all, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. Peace.